Recently, I hit a bit of a wall with my strength training. In fact, I hit a bit of a wall in general. And if you've tried exercising more, you might have experienced the same thing. Instead of feeling stronger, I was feeling tired, stiff, and I was dragging myself into those workout sessions. Not a good look when you're working out alongside two sprightly people in their 80s. For those of you who don't know, that's my mum and dad. I started calling the deadlifts the Dreadlifts because of how much I was struggling to make any gains beyond the 63 kilos, 139 pounds that I was lifting. And during a conversation with my parent strength coach, Chris Reis, who's also a doctor of physical therapy, I asked him about this feeling of stiffness, and he offered to take a look at my form, my programming, and my lifestyle.
You will have stiff, achy joints if you're undernourished.
And he was incredibly kind enough to give me some honest feedback and help me reset my training plan.
That you're just going too heavy too often and your joints are getting beat up.
And he didn't just give me a new program, he pointed out 4 specific areas that were holding me back and keeping me stuck.
And again, we talk about this a lot with coaching in general, is just eyes on your technique as you make progress.
Today, you're going to hear what they are and what to do about it. And if you've been feeling stuck in your own fitness journey, I hope these insights from Chris can help set you on a safer, more effective path, just like they did for me. The first lesson I learned from Chris is that I wasn't eating enough protein to properly support continuing to build muscle through my training. I thought I was eating close to around 100 grams of protein a day, but when I actually sat down and calculated it properly, I realized I wasn't even close. So that was a bit of a wake-up call. And because as we age, our muscles become less responsive to protein, known as anabolic resistance, we generally need a greater protein boost to effectively support muscle maintenance and growth. And maintaining muscle matters, not just for strength and body composition, but for metabolic health, resilience, mobility, balance, and healthy aging overall. So the current UK government recommendation is around 0.34 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day, considered enough to prevent deficiency in the general population. But many researchers and clinicians now suggest older adults may benefit from double that daily to better support muscles as we age, with some experts, including Chris, recommending even more, closer to around a gram per pound of body weight, particularly for people doing strength training. I asked Chris if the stiffness I was feeling was just part of getting older, and his answer surprised me. It wasn't just about the workout, it was about how I was or wasn't fueling my body.
So a lot of times you will have stiff, achy joints if you're undernourished. If you're not getting enough protein and not getting enough calories on a regular basis, your body's not able to recover. And a lot of times it's not like an outright injury. You're not, oh, I can't do it. It just doesn't feel that good. You feel like your body is breaking down more than it's building up. And we have this conversation a lot with women. They're always very concerned about body weight. And a lot of times we try to have this conversation really early on with a lifter. You're probably going to gain some weight. That's a good thing. We want that to happen. If you're doing this program and you're increasing your weights, the weight that you do gain will be lean tissue, muscle, bone, connective tissue, all the stuff that we want. A lot of times in terms of your aesthetics, this weight gain is good. This is something you like to see in the mirror. Clothes tend to fit better. But it's an important part of this process. And for everybody, there will be a ceiling at a given body weight where you just can't get any heavier with your weights because your body is kind of maxed out for a given amount of mass that you're carrying. So you may have reached that point where you need now to, think about eating a little bit more, upping the caloric intake, and then, again, probably going to result in some pounds on the scale, and that'll probably get this thing moving again for you. What we usually recommend is 1 gram per pound of body weight on the protein. So you're in the neighborhood of 100 to 115, 120 a day, right? And I always tell lifters, if you're in the ballpark on a consistent basis, you're fine. You don't have to, if you're at like 102 one day, like that's just fine. You don't have to be 115 or 120 like on the nose every single day, but just get in the ballpark. Most days you're good. And then you're eating enough other nutrients to make the scale creep up over time. It may be a pound or 2 every month. we find that most people are far under eating. They're kind of overestimating what they're getting from a protein standpoint. A lot of women, I think, tend to kind of overestimate like caloric intake. And bottom line is, if the scale isn't moving, you're not eating enough, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like if you're pretty active, if you're always on the go and you're moving, you're not sitting down a lot, you're burning a lot of calories, just living your life. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's probably a good thing from overall health. But it will increase the caloric demand if you're going to put on some weight and if you're going to, build lean tissue, bone and muscle. The nutrition's probably the biggest bang for your buck at this stage. There's again probably a little bit we could look at with technique, a little bit we could look at with programming, but I bet your nutrition is going to be the biggest bang for your buck. And again, it's fairly common with women. We hear it all the time, right? Like I've got many women in the gym that are, and maybe you have a number in your head that like, I will not weigh more than this. And so when we hit that number, whatever that number is, sometimes it's awfully conservative. And we try to have this conversation like, is there any give there? Because if not, you're sort of putting this artificial ceiling on what you can do.
The second lesson I learned from our conversation was that I was lifting too heavy too often. Because I wasn't being coached, I was following my dad's routine, getting as close to his weights as possible within what I thought was my range. But now my dad is something of a power lifter for his age, doing 97 kilo or 214 pound deadlifts at 82. Trying to stay even close to his orbit was becoming challenging. His opening warm-up deadlift was 50 kilos, so I would start there too and then work my way up to a maximum of around 63, 64 kilos. Where he was squatting with over 50 kilos on the bar, I was going up to around 47, and so it went on for our other lifts. But what this meant was, in trying to stay in the same ballpark as my dad for convenience as we trained, I was always maxing out every muscle group, every workout, leaving me feeling stiff and burnt out. Chris pointed out that while consistency is key, intensity needs to be managed. If you're constantly testing your strength instead of building it, you're on a fast track to burnout. Here's how he explained where I was tripping myself up.
You need to be really on like your own program. Coming right into a 50 kilogram first set is probably just too heavy for you, right? For your dad, that's like 50%, right? That's about 50% of where he's going. So that's appropriate for him if he's already squatted and things. So that just may be too much for you. And if you're hitting a single at 63, you're starting real heavy right off, for 5 reps right out of the gate at 50.
Yeah.
So
I've got so used to doing the 50 for 5 now.
Yeah. It sounds like you're probably just working too heavy too often. That may be a huge part. Again, when I look at your programming, that'll be more clear. But if you're doing that heavy that frequently, just to kind of stay kind of where he's at, it's very likely that you're just going too heavy too often, and your joints are getting beat up and they're not able to recover. At some point, you'll hit a ceiling with your progress. A lot of times as you get stronger and as you train, as you make progress, you're able to provide more stress to yourself in the session. And that generally means you have to kind of spread out how often you go heavy, how often you're working at your max. But it sounds like you're coming in and maxing out every day. So your body is probably not able to recover adequately and your joints are just getting wrecked. And people ask us a lot why we do, sets of 5, wouldn't sets of 1. This is a great example. Sets of 1 would be heavier. You're producing more stress. Wouldn't that be more effective? And the answer a lot of times is it's going to lead to injury and burnout a heck of a lot quicker. It's far too heavy too often. Your nervous system is fried and your joints are getting beat up.
The third area that was holding me back was form. So Chris told me that my form across the 4 lifts that we do was actually pretty good, but I had got into a couple of creeping bad habits, especially on the squat. As the weights on the bar got heavier, my range of motion was getting smaller because I didn't have a coach keeping an eye on my depth. I thought I was getting stronger, but I was actually just shortening the movement to compensate for the weight. Chris calls this form creep, and it's one of the primary reasons people stop seeing results or start feeling achy in their joints rather than tired in their muscles. He suggested a reset approach that sounds like a step back, but for me actually feels like a leap forward.
I would reduce your weights to the point where you can hit depth and then build back from that point, making sure that you're hitting depth. That we see this a lot. We refer to it as form creep. Where you may have been hitting depth earlier and the weights get heavier. And again, if you don't have somebody there watching and making sure you're at depth or analyzing videos or something like that, you might start, now you're right at parallel, and then you go up a little bit more, and now you're a little bit high, but you can't really feel the difference. They feel fine to you. And then as you go, they get heavier and heavier, and you're kind of cutting off that range of motion more and more. And again, we talk about this a lot with coaching in general, is just eyes on your technique as you make progress, as the weights go up. Because at some point, if the technique is starting to slip for whatever reason, then we would look at modifying the program, resetting the weights, giving you a light day, or any number of other adjustments we might make to the program to make sure the form stays good.
And finally, Chris asked if I was using hormone therapy. Now, at 53, the answer is I do, but I didn't have my dosing right. Sorry if it's too much information, but I use a Mirena coil for progesterone and had been microdosing estrogen because I'm quite sensitive to changes in estrogen. I know you say estrogen elsewhere. And for a while, hormone therapy was causing me to feel a bit emotional. Coincidentally, just days before my conversation with Chris, I had decided to increase my estrogen dose. So now I'm using half a patch rather than a quarter because some of those perimenopause symptoms had returned. This time though, I didn't get that emotional feeling with the increase. And just as Chris explains here, it has had the added benefit of relieving some of that stiffness I described earlier. So we often think of HRT just for hot flushes or mood swings, but for women in perimenopause and menopause, estrogen is a player in muscle protein synthesis and joint lubrication, which is why some of us can feel stiffer. And Chris explains why just getting by for those of us who are struggling isn't the same as optimizing.
I don't know if we talked about this way early on, but I don't know if you're on or if you've considered hormone replacement therapy.
I do use it.
Okay, good. We just had a woman in our gym. She's like 40. She's got 9 kids and like feeling really tired. I was starting to see some things with her numbers, like her squat just like hit this wall and we just couldn't get past it. Some stuff with her deadlift where numbers that she should have been able to hit just wouldn't budge off the floor. And it's difficult because she's got 9 kids, very, very busy. I'm thinking like, of course she's tired. Like she's waking up at 5:30 to come in here. She's got all these kids at home and she's got a very full, busy life all the time. Like, yeah, she's just tired. She's not recovering great. That's why her squat's stuck. But her husband is also a member. And so I was talking to him about TRT and he was asking about his wife. And I said, absolutely. She should probably get checked too. And long story short, like she had some hormones that were way out of whack, right? I mean, progesterone, undetectable. Some really obvious things here that can be addressed pretty easily and, pretty cost effectively that I think will help her feel quite a bit better. So I think typically modern medicine looks for like, are you dying? How can we prevent you from dying? And they're not necessarily proactive in how can we optimize your health for, we want you to feel as good as you can and function as well as you can mentally, physically. And I think hormones are really kind of becoming more and more common and more people are becoming aware of their value and what they can do for you. So I think that dose may need to go up. If you're starting, very conservatively, very low, it should make you feel noticeably better. There should be a pretty obvious, uptick in energy levels and just kind of, I think a lot of people describe just an overall mental outlook on your day as a little bit more positive. So I think if you're not feeling like it's made much of a difference for you, I would certainly, consider talking to whoever's, getting it for you and talk about maybe upping the dose.
So I had that conversation with Chris just over a month ago, and the changes I've made since then have made a big difference to how I feel day to day. The workout sessions are much more manageable. The achiness I was feeling and the ongoing tiredness have lifted. I still have stiffness in my knees and I'm working in some stretching and taking a little longer to warm up before squats, which helps that a lot. And upping my protein, making sure I'm also taking a little creatine and some collagen powder each day have all combined to put me in a much better place for training. For those of you who might not know, creatine helps provide energy to your muscle cells, while collagen provides the building blocks for the cartilage in your joints. Using them together means I'm doing everything I can to optimize my strength and flexibility. And I'll include details in the description of everything I use in case that's helpful. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd ask you to hit subscribe or follow to watch more from me on the Honest channel. And to keep up with all the latest from me, you'll find a link in the description to sign up to my free monthly newsletter. And if you'd like to support support this channel and access extra content and perks from us in return, you'll find information about becoming a member below. Also there, you're going to find links to some related conversations with experts around hormone therapy and building muscle, including Dr. Stacey Sims. But until next time, thank you so much for being here today.